Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you guys for tuning into another episode of The Power of Storytelling. Today we have Ashleigh Henry on with us. She is the founder and CEO of the Cheetah Company, which is a marketing and sales firm. If you guys do enjoy this conversation, make sure to follow and like on whatever platform you're listening on. Let's get into the conversation. I do want to say thank you, Ashleigh, for joining us on another episode of The Power of Storytelling. And usually how we start is we just like to allow you to introduce yourself, kind of talk about what you're doing right now, and we'll kind of just get into it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Ashleigh Henry, founder and CEO of the Cheetah Company. We are a modernized marketing and sales firm with a traditional and timeless twist. So we've been serving modern businesswomen all around the globe for the last 3 years in marketing and sales consulting, coaching, and education. And after working with 100 plus clients around the globe, we have a lot to share. We have a lot that we want to bring to the table to just kind of reimagine what the business space can look like.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. How did you kind of get into this area? What made you want to do this?
That's funny. I actually was interested in investigative journalism.
Okay.
So growing up as a kid in, 2001 arena, I really wanted to just like jump in, see where I could support and help um, to just change journalism a little bit and give more storytelling behind what was happening across the seas, I guess you could say. And so I started to pursue that and then realized, well, I actually have like a heart for business and I'm not sure that I can do that if I'm like across the sea
For
as
sure.
an investigative journalist. And I wasn't sure I could build a family doing that. I'm sure that folks do, but I really almost always had keys to every company that I worked with, ended up accidentally a leader in the structure somehow
Mhm.
every time, even saying, oh, I want to just like fly under the radar and kind of do my own thing and be creative and let this job truly be a job. But I'm such a purpose driven person that if I wasn't connected to the company that I couldn't really hang out there. So I actually got into this space after a pretty intense time as a marketing strategist at a self-funded startup. And we had an anchor client during the pandemic that was voluntary medical. So folks stopped going. It was a really intense time. So I looked at my husband and said, I think I can run a marketing agency by myself.
For
And
sure.
I started it in 2020.
That's awesome. I love that you say that because I feel like the stipulation that we've seen, especially as I grew up, was it almost wasn't cool to like try hard or have like a purpose. And
Mhm.
I think that like what times are changing now where it's becoming a cool thing again, or people are realizing how important it is. Having a purpose is super important for just getting you up in the morning, and I think that it is very important for people to find their purpose. I love that you say that. What do you think is like one of the main things that has caused you to become like a lead, like, or be put into like a leadership role throughout your company? Do you think it was just trying to have that purpose, or do you think that was it staying up super late and kind of staying at work, or what do you think it was?
I think as often as I was in different leadership roles from startups to higher education at a law school to retail, it was really watching the business owners constantly have to relaunch themselves and
Mhm.
re-strategize and pivot. I thought that looked fun. I'm an experimenter at heart, so I thought that might be kind of fun instead of the slow grind of every day and just kind of being bored in the process of being in the keg of the wheel of corporations. And so I think it is purpose, but it's also experimentation. I like the risk. I like to manage risk. And I think what you're saying about it's becoming cool again to try hard, you really see that across the board, especially in social media. Folks are interested in having a craft that really moves society forward.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of something that has always spoken to me is having just a bigger impact in the world. I don't just want to be that like a statistic in a sense. I don't want to just be a small keg in the wheel of a big corporation, but I want to have a big impact in something and kind of have my name out there and be a bigger impact on a company or something like that. So I love that you say that. I like to turn into and would like to ask you a little bit about kind of like how you grew up. How was your family life like, and kind of just dive into that.
Yeah. My parents were super young when they got married, and I was actually a surprise, which I didn't learn until I was
Oh.
18. So that was kind of wild. That actually threw me for a loop because I internally kind of felt that all of my
Mhm.
childhood that maybe I didn't quite belong or it wasn't quite the right time. So that's also layered in my purpose is just creating spaces of belonging for people to really feel like they belong in the world.
Mhm.
So my parents were very young. They were introverted. I'm super extroverted, love to talk. And I had to find ways to keep myself kind of involved and around friends. So, as you do, we um, young parents, they had to work a lot of jobs. We were in a low income area regularly, or we had to move a couple of times. And now looking back on it, I can see as an adult, it wasn't necessarily just for fun, it was like purposeful. And we ended up in a space where, in Ocala, Florida, there's a place called Little Mexico. And I learned to speak Spanish there and roam the streets and get into that culture. And I loved it. But I was also influenced and saw a lot of gang violence, domestic violence, experienced it myself, and just really saw what substances and abuse can do to a population. So
Sure.
it was difficult to kind of grow up in that arena. And my parents did the absolute best that they could, being so young and kind of growing up themselves still. So ultimately, I think childhood wise, it was a beautiful childhood of learning lessons and really being able to pivot and decide I can have a different life, even though I'm being exposed to this atmosphere, which was a hard choice, very hard
Yeah,
choice.
for sure. I think that a lot of people, whenever they are in that lifestyle as a kid, they think that that's all they have going for them. And I love that you say that because it is very important to know that there's more out there for you. And that's kind of
Yeah.
part of this foundation is, real like helping others realize that, yes, you might be in a situation right now and you might think that this is the end, like the dead end, and this is all you're going to have, but there's so much potential out there for you. It just takes that movement. It takes you that little bit of extra effort and knowing that there's more out there to explore or to get. So I love that you say that. What do you think has been one of the like a foundational like educational point throughout your life or throughout your childhood that has allowed you to be as successful as you are now?
Hmm. I would say my dad always suggested to never be the smartest person in the room, to always learn more, to dig deeper into books. If you have a little fascination with something, go binge it. So now watching him, that looks like he's like on YouTube, finding new things, sending me weird things, and we're just like geeking out over it. But before that, it was like he was constantly reading a book. And by the time I was in, I think, fifth grade, I was reading at a college level because of that. So I think being able to read and kind of allow for intellect to really move me forward and be an innovator, kind of taking from these different industries and what tech would say, like lifting and shifting a strategy from one place to another, has really helped me.
That's awesome. I think that kind of ties into one of my strongest beliefs that learning is a skill. I think that a lot of people think, whenever they're younger, they're going through school, whether they're just not interested in it or it's just that they're getting taught in a way that doesn't kind of go along with the way they learn, they think they're just not smart. But in
Right.
reality, people will learn throughout their life that, you can learn different ways and you can also teach yourself to learn quicker, learn better, and learn faster. So I love that you say that because obviously it seems like you worked on that skill throughout your childhood and it's kind of rolled over. So I think that that's important for people to know that you can learn to learn better in a sense.
I love that. Yeah, like learning modalities is really connected to a person. There's someone we love. She was our brand strategist and photographer recently. Corey Fraser Photography is her website. She really teaches that and has like a master's in teaching others how to educate themselves through different learning modalities. So beautiful. And I agree with you. Like perfect value, absolutely a skill, something that we have to keep refining over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, so did you go to college?
Mhm.
Yeah, what did you choose to study throughout college and why, like, obviously I know you were talking about it a little bit, but did you stick with it or why did you change and what would you tell someone that's either looking into going to college or is in college right now?
Yeah, this kind of ties into learning modalities too. I thought about going for business and decided to stick in mass communications and be able to use that and leverage it in different spaces and industries. So essentially, in every job that I had, once folks learned, oh, you have a degree in mass communications, well, you can take care of our communications. It was like, okay, I see what's happening here. So that's where marketing came afoot. But I would say in college, I was the editor for our newspaper and a creative literature journal that we had. And having those two modalities of very creative and very pragmatic really influenced me throughout college. I stuck with it. And I ultimately used that degree to move on to the University of Florida to work there for a year and a half, 2 years.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you say that. And I mean, I think it's so important to find what you like to do in a sense. I know that you're talking a little bit about that. What did you have any mentors going through either college or even throughout your childhood? I know you talked about your dad. Is there anyone else that you felt like really had a big impact on your success and how you are now?
Yeah, I would definitely say my mom is still the other side of that, alongside a few professors in college for sure. But my dad is very pragmatic, analytical, takes everything step by step. And he actually worked in a factory most of my life. And watching him be able to just do math on such a quick fly, I was like, okay, you just created this thing with your hands based on math in your mind. So that was beautiful to watch. But my mom was the creator. She
Mhm.
constantly was creating like handmade products that she would sell. And she didn't necessarily have a sales background, but I'm very talkative. So I'd be like, well, I'll go sell your soaps at school.
For
That's
sure.
fine. And so she was a huge influence in the creative aspect. And then professor wise, I would say both of my professors were in the writing arenas, were huge in college to just give me a different foot and also influence me to think about how I can educate the next generation, because one day I will pass and my ability to write and communicate will go. But if I can teach someone else, then that's the beauty of stewardship.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I know that obviously with starting your own agency now, what do you think has been a huge like learning point or like something that you were taught only that you would have been taught because you started your own agency?
Mm-hmm. I would say how to have direct communication be a value and skill that you're constantly refining.
Mhm.
Uh, Understanding that there's so much more that goes into running a business than just having a skill and receiving cash for it.
For sure.
I would say like the true commerce is emotional intelligence and being able to communicate really well, understand people, and uh, serve from the heart.
Wow, and you think you believe that that's really helped not only you, but you think that that's a huge impact for a lot of either companies out there or businesses. That's interesting. What do you think that someone could do to learn how to do that a little bit better? Obviously, this is a little bit more in your industry or like what you do, so I'd love to talk to you a little bit about it.
Yeah, I would honestly talk to serial entrepreneurs that are in a different space than you. I've been mentored by folks that have been in business for 20 to almost 50 years. So they don't necessarily have a huge marketing presence and they're not the most interesting on TikTok, but they are the folks that have Rolodexes and years of experience to just say, this is how I handled the worst thing in my business, or this PR issue could have completely destroyed our business, and this is how we handled it. I would definitely look for entrepreneurs in your arena. They love to talk. They love to talk and share their generational gifts. And I definitely would just go down the rabbit hole of communication books, just diving into Amazon or a bookstore and focusing on emotional intelligence and communication.
For sure, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that that's a skill that a lot of people don't even know is out there.
Mm-mm.
So people learning that whether they're trying to get their company going or working for a company that could help them a lot. So I appreciate you for talking about that. Um, Another thing I like to talk about too is you know throughout your life you've had multiple different ways of creating income. Do you believe it is important to stick with doing what you love and try to make money doing that, or do you believe that you should be finding a job and then maybe doing things on the side? What has been your kind of past relationship with that, and what do you feel like works best?
Yeah. I once heard a quote, I think from Elizabeth Gilbert, to not beg your craft to be the only way that you receive profit and the only way that you receive income. And she has a beautiful story. I think her book is called Big Magic, which is where I read it. I really leaned into that in college and kind of understood, okay, I want to be a writer. That's my ultimate goal. That layers into the agency for sure.
Sure.
But currently, we're reverse engineering how I'm going to write several books.
Mhm.
So even though that's my ultimate goal and writing is included, I would say we should definitely leverage skills that folks need right now and kind of trade that for now while you're working on your purpose. Not to say that you can't do both, you can do both, but sometimes a lot of stress and anxiety comes up when you're kind of choking your purpose and your favorite thing to do constantly to bring you income. It can really like dig into your self-worth and your value of money, and all of those things that you have to live, but you also can kind of be a multidimensional person and have several aspects of yourself. I will say that during my path of different places in my career, writing was always on the side. I've been published, all of that good stuff, but I didn't really ask it to bring everything to me. I
Mhm.
asked myself to bring everything to it. So I had more time and creativity.
Wow, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, choking your purpose. It's the first time I've heard that. It's amazing. Definitely gonna
Thank you.
use it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, kind of, I like to always ask this question as well, just kind of getting into it. But if you could talk to yourself, 5, 10 years ago, what is one of those big, like that big advice point that you would tell yourself that would help you either go faster or longer or more successful?
Thinking 10 years ago, I would have said, really value yourself, show up and charge for what you're worth. You have a lot of information, a lot of skill. Don't lowball yourself just because you're young. That's what I would say.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's where I think that kind of ties into knowing, you shouldn't be thinking you're the best in the room, or kind of ties in with like ego. Understand that you're a human, you are here to learn, and you should be learning your whole life. So that if you're just trying to get to a point of everything, like what's even the point of that? So don't be afraid of like saying you don't know something, or asking for help. I think that's so important. I think a lot of people are just so focused on being perfect, or believe that they know everything, that they're just missing out on so much more success, or they're missing out on so much more benefit from other people. I know we were talking about something a little bit earlier as well, like just like emotional intelligence and emotional communication. And I was talking to someone about this a few podcasts ago, but talking about how you shouldn't be treating every person that you're talking to like a transaction, but you should be talking to them like they are a person, like they're a human being just like you. And I think that ties into that a lot. Do you have anything to say when it comes to how to do that a little bit better? I feel like you're someone that's pretty intelligent in that area. So don't just treat people like transaction, but actually talk to them like a human. How could you do that a little bit better or easier?
It's kind of a weird notion, but if you've been in the business space or if you watch folks in the business space, even as young as you are, you probably have several authority figures in your life. Even if you're not heading towards business, you're going to have a boss at some point. You have parents or someone of the sort. And when you think about conversations that you've had with authority figures, think about how you felt in your stomach. Like, have you felt like, okay, this is fine? Or have you felt those knots of like, I'm not appreciated here, I'm not seen, I'm kind of spoken down to a little bit? I think that's the most important part, is considering how could the other person take this if I am not cautious and careful with my tone. So getting online for the first time in like, I think it was like 2012, I shared about my photography business for the first time online. And I thought, okay, on the other side of this, I'm just going to pretend it's my best friend. I'm
Yeah.
just going to pretend that there's someone on the other side, that we already have a rapport, that we have a connection. I'll find common ground, which is important in conversations around the world in different cultures, and also serving and selling with whatever your skills are. And I'll do my best to connect on a human level. How can I look at this person as a human and not someone that is going to be paying me or I'm going to be paying them?
Wow, that's amazing. I love that you say that. I think that that's something that that's a skill that we're almost losing. The more that we're talking to people online versus in person, you start to think of them as not another human on the other side of that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
everyone falls victim to that. I know I have as well. Whether you're creating content or you're commenting on a post, you're not thinking about them as another human being reading that. You're just thinking about like they're just someone on social media or something. But I love that you say that. I think that's going to be super helpful. It's even helpful for me, because I feel like I fall victim to that as well. Another question I like to ask you, how would you define success? And what do you think it looks like, not only for you, but for people out there?
Yeah. I think I had a great connection call and overall rapport with Melissa Pepin. She's fantastic with this question. She has something called success markers. So, not just one point of success, but looking around and saying, like, what are my success markers and how do I know that I'm kind of on the trail and the pathway? Very similar to like a hiking trail. How do you know you're on the right the right trail? And for me, I really start to wonder, how are my relationships? How's my overall pie of life? Not just how much money am I making? How many clients do I have? But really considering, is my relationship with my husband great? Have I called my parents recently? And am I as often the kind person that's supporting someone that I don't know as much as I'm supporting someone that I do know. Those are some of my pieces of success because money is fluid towards your purpose, profit comes from that. And ultimately, when you're thinking about how can I be the best me, I think that's when you know, like, oh, that's how I'm the best me. And those are my success markers.
That's awesome. So not just focusing on how much money you're making, but actually all aspects of life. And I feel like when you do that, and you're not so focused on the money will start coming in a sense. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now we can kind of tie this into it as well. What are some of your goals? I like to ask this as well. What are some goals for you in the near future, and then maybe even like long-term goals for yourself?
Yeah. A huge goal is just my husband and I really desire to travel with our children. He also grew up in low income, and we just didn't have opportunity to be with our parents as much and really learn organically from them. We had to kind of do it in these pockets of time in between work and survival ultimately. And so we really want to travel the world with our kids. And we're thinking 10 years down the line, how can we homeschool and bring culture into their lives in new ways and expose them to things that we weren't exposed to while teaching them some of the harder skills that were difficult for us to learn, like money management, time management, communication with each other, even just watching different communication practices in our homes. And I think all of those like really hard skills that grow to all spaces of life is just a big goal for as we're family planning. And then ultimately, like I shared, I'm preparing to write a few books, and
Hmm.
those are huge. And we're starting our podcast this summer. So
That's
excited about that.
amazing. You have the title for it. You know what it's going to be called?
Yes, pending approval from my lawyer, your conversation pit.
Nice. That's awesome. I love it. Well, those sound like some awesome goals. I know you're gonna hit them. It sounds like you're definitely on the right track. Um, I want to ask this. This will be one of the last questions as well. Is for those starting to or wanting to start a business, what would be just something that you could tell them to kind of help them go and start versus stop thinking so much on the wheel?
Yeah, I love that. I think messy action is something that we read a lot on social media, and sometimes it can look like, no, I want everything to be perfect. Like, what if I bring people into messy action? They don't like it. Some of our lifelong clients that we've worked with came in like year one and they loved everything, even as we've refined and grown over and over again. And the messy action is actually what keeps customers in your cycle because they just love to stay with you once they're lifers. And that kind of reverse engineering that, if you're looking for a mentor, really read every line and consider, is this person based on this sales page or this website, are they in alignment with my core values, my purpose? Are they just here to make a buck, or are they here to change the world? And I lean towards people that are changing the world. Money will always circulate. So finding a mentor based on your values, messy action, kind of reverse engineering your big vision, and not just thinking like, I just need this amount of money or these amount of clients, but what's the bigger purpose here?
That's awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to take up too much of your time, of course. I do appreciate you for hopping on. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before we hop off?
I just, I really want to speak to anyone that's listening as though I'm in your shoes. If there's anything that you've been holding yourself back from, this is just your little sign to get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you for being here, and we'll be talking soon again. Thank you.
Thanks, Boston.